Have you ever felt so alone that even silence becomes heavy? Have you watched others sleep peacefully while darkness whispers secrets only you can hear? This is a story about a boy who learned that sometimes, the dead speak louder than the living. Sometimes, they speak because no one else will listen. And sometimes, a lonely child becomes the bridge between two worlds, not because he is special, but because he is willing to hear what others refuse to acknowledge. This is Amodi's story. Before we begin this amazing story, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another tale. The other boys said Amodi talked to himself. They were not entirely wrong. Amodi lived in the compound behind the church, where Reverend Okoro kept the orphans who had nowhere else to go. 7 boys slept on mats in one room, their bodies pressed close like cassava roots bundled for market. But Amodi always felt separate, as if an invisible wall stood between him and the others. His mother died when fever swept through their family compound. His father followed 6 months later, unable to bear the weight of grief. Amodi was 9 years old then. Now he was 12, and the memories of his parents' faces were fading like old photographs left in the sun. "You are strange," the other boys told him. "You stand by the graveyard and stare at nothing." Amodi could not explain that the graveyard felt more peaceful than the crowded sleeping room. He could not tell them that among the dead, he felt less alone. The voices started on a night when the moon hung low and orange, like a ripe papaya ready to fall from the sky. Amodi. He woke suddenly, his heart pounding against his ribs. The other boys breathed deeply in their sleep. The compound was silent except for the distant barking of dogs and the rustle of palm leaves in the wind. "Amodi, please." It was a woman's voice, soft as rain on dry earth. Sad as a mother's lullaby sung over an empty cradle. He sat up slowly, careful not to wake the others. His hands trembled as he wrapped his thin blanket around his shoulders. The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Find me, Amodi. I have been waiting so long." "Who are you?" he whispered into the darkness. The other boy slept on. The voice did not answer. But Amodi knew, with a certainty that made his stomach tighten, that the voice came from the graveyard behind the church. He lay back down, but sleep would not return. His eyes remained open until the first cock crowed and pink light crept through the window. When the other boys woke and began their morning chores, Amodi moved through his tasks like a ghost himself, sweeping the compound, fetching water from the well, eating his portion of yam porridge without tasting it. All day, the voice echoed in his memory. That night, it came again. "Amodi. Please, child. Find me." This time, he did not hesitate. He rose from his mat, stepped carefully over the sleeping bodies of the other boys, and slipped out into the night. The moon illuminated his path with silver light. His bare feet made no sound on the dusty ground as he walked toward the iron gate that separated the church compound from the graveyard. The gate was supposed to be locked, but the latch had been broken for months, and no one had bothered to repair it. Amodi pushed it open. It groaned softly, a sound like an old man rising from sleep. The graveyard spread before him, a field of crosses and simple stone markers. Some graves were well tended, with fresh flowers and cleared paths. Others had been swallowed by weeds and time, forgotten by the living who once mourned there. "Here, Amodi. I am here." The voice pulled him forward, past the newer graves near the front, past the large tomb of the merchant who once owned half the market, past the simple crosses of children who never grew old. At the far edge of the graveyard, where the land sloped down toward the forest, Amodi stopped. A single grave lay there, marked by a crude wooden cross that leaned heavily to one side. No flowers. No offerings. No sign that anyone had visited in years. Weeds grew thick around the mound, and the cross bore no name, only a crude carving of the year, 2018. 7 years ago. "You found me," the voice whispered, and it carried such relief that Amodi felt tears spring to his eyes. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice barely louder than the wind. The air shimmered above the grave, and Amodi's breath caught in his throat. A shape formed, translucent, wavering like heat rising from hot ground, but undeniably human. A woman, young, with kind eyes and a face that held both sorrow and hope. "My name was Choma," the spirit said. And I died with shame that was not mine to carry. Amodi should have run. Every story he had ever heard about spirits warned him to flee, to seek protection, to never speak to the restless dead. But something in Chioma's eyes held him there, a desperate sadness that he recognized, because he saw it in his own reflection every day. "Why do you call me?" Amodi asked. Chioma's spirit drifted closer, and though she had no solid form, Amodi could see her clearly now. She wore a simple dress, the kind market women wore. Her hair was braided close to her scalp. She could have been anyone's sister, anyone's daughter, anyone's friend. "Because you listen," Chioma said. "Because you are alone, and the alone can hear what others cannot. Because I have called for 7 years, and you are the first to answer. What do you want?" "Justice," the spirit said simply. "Truth. My name cleared before I can rest." She gestured to the unmarked grave, the forgotten corner of the cemetery. "I was 23 years old when I died. I worked at the church, cleaning and cooking for Reverend Okoro. I was saving money to go to school, to become a nurse. I had dreams, Amodi. I had plans." Amodi sat down on the ground, wrapping his blanket tighter against the night chill. "What happened?" "Money went missing from the church collection box," Chioma said, and her voice grew thick with pain. "A large amount, enough to feed many families, enough to fix the roof that leaked, enough to buy books for the children's school. It vanished on a Sunday night. And they blamed you?" "I was the last person to clean the church that evening. The next morning, the money was gone. Reverend Okoro asked me if I had taken it. I said no, swore on my mother's life that I had not. But the evidence seemed clear. Who else had been alone in the church? Who else had access?" Chioma's form flickered, as if strong emotion made it harder for her to maintain her shape. The church committee held a meeting. They did not call it a trial, but that is what it was. They asked me again and again to confess, to return the money, to ask for forgiveness. I kept saying I did not take it, but no one believed me. Not Reverend Okoro, not the deacons, not even my friends. Didn't anyone defend you? My mother tried. She spoke for me, said I was honest, that she raised me to respect God and people. But she was old and poor, and her voice carried no weight against the voices of the church leaders. They said I must have been desperate, that poverty drives people to desperate acts." Amodi felt anger rising in his chest. He knew what it was like to be dismissed, to be invisible, to have no one speak for you. "What happened then?" "They banished me from the church. Told everyone in the community that I was a thief. My mother wept. My brothers refused to speak to me. The man I hoped to marry sent word that he could not associate with someone of such poor character." Chioma's voice cracked. "I lost everything in a single day, my work, my reputation, my future, my relationships. I became a ghost even before I died." "How did you die?" Amodi asked softly. "Shame is a heavy burden, child. It crushes you slowly. I stopped eating. I stopped sleeping. I would walk at night, unable to face the stares of people during the day. 3 weeks after the accusation, I took sick with fever. My body was too weak to fight. I died in my mother's house, still protesting my innocence, still asking to be believed. And no one ever found out the truth." "No," Chioma said. "I was buried here, at the edge of the cemetery, as far from the righteous dead as possible. My mother could not afford a proper stone. My brothers did not attend my funeral. The church prayed over me, but their prayers felt like more accusations." She looked at Amodi with eyes that held 7 years of anguish. "I cannot rest, Amodi. My spirit is tied to this place by the injustice of my death. I need someone to discover the truth, to clear my name, to let my mother know before she dies that her daughter was innocent." "But how?" Amodi asked. "I am just a boy. An orphan. No one listens to me either." "You hear the dead," Chioma said. "That means you are not ordinary. You are a bridge. And bridges connect what has been separated." "Who took the money?" Chioma shook her head. I do not know. The dead can see many things, but we cannot see into the hearts of the living. I can only see the moment of the theft, a shadow, a figure moving in the church at night. But I cannot see the face. Then how can I help? Ask questions. Watch. Listen. The truth is still there, Amodi. Hidden, but there. The one who took the money still lives in this community. Find them. Expose them. Give me peace. The first light of dawn was beginning to gray the eastern sky. Chioma's form grew fainter. I must go when the sun rises, she said. But I will return tomorrow night. Will you help me, lonely boy? Will you be my voice? Amodi thought of his own isolation, his own invisibility. He thought of how it felt to have no one believe in you, no one see your worth. He thought of Chioma dying with shame she did not deserve, buried in a forgotten corner, her name forever stained. Yes, he said. I will help you. Chioma smiled, the first smile Amodi had seen on her face, and it transformed her completely. For a moment, she looked not like a tragic spirit but like the young woman she had been, full of hope and dreams. Thank you, Amodi. Thank you. She faded as the sun touched the horizon, leaving Amodi alone in the graveyard with a grave responsibility on his young shoulders. Amodi walked back to the compound as the other boys were waking. They looked at him strangely, his feet were dirty, his blanket damp with dew, but they said nothing. Amodi was always doing strange things, they thought. This was just another oddness to ignore. But Amodi's mind was racing. How could he investigate a theft from 7 years ago? How could he convince anyone to listen to him? How could he even begin? He decided to start with the simplest thing, learning more about Chioma. After morning chores and breakfast, Amodi approached Mama Ngozi, the old woman who sold fried akra outside the church gate. She had been there for as long as anyone could remember, watching the comings and goings of the church community, observing everything with her sharp eyes. Mama Ngozi, Amodi said, buying a piece of akara with one of the few coins he had saved, do you remember a woman named Chioma who used to work at the church? Mama Ngozi's face darkened immediately. Why do you ask about her, boy? I heard some of the older people mention her name. I was curious. Curiosity about that one will bring you no good, Mama Ngozi said, but her voice carried a note of sadness. She was a thief. Stole from the church and died in disgrace. Did you know her well? Well enough. She used to buy akara from me every morning on her way to the church. Always smiling, always polite. Always said, Mama Ngozi, your akara gives me strength for the day. I like that girl. Did you think she was a thief? Mama Ngozi was quiet for a long moment, stirring her pot of hot oil. I did not want to think so. But what else could anyone think? The evidence was clear. What evidence? She was alone in the church. She had access to the collection box. She was poor and wanted money for school. It all made sense. But did anyone actually see her take the money? No, but, Mama Ngozi paused, her stirring spoon suspended in air. Why are you asking these questions, child? Because maybe everyone was wrong, Amodi said quietly. Maybe she did not take it. After 7 years. Why would you think such a thing? Amodi could not say because her spirit told me. So he said instead, because if everyone was wrong, then an innocent person died in shame. That is not right. Mama Ngozi studied him with her sharp eyes. You are a strange boy, Amodi. But perhaps the world needs more strange people who ask uncomfortable questions. She sold an akara to a customer, then turned back to Amodi. I will tell you something I never told anyone else. The night before the money went missing, I saw someone leaving the church very late. After midnight. I could not see who it was, but they moved like they did not want to be seen. Why did you not tell anyone? Because when they accused Chioma the next day, I thought perhaps I had seen her. I thought perhaps she had gone back at night to steal. But now that you make me remember. Mama Ngozi frowned. The figure I saw moved differently than Chioma. Heavier. Taller, I think. But it was dark, and I am old. My eyes are not what they were. A man, then. Perhaps. Or a large woman. I cannot say for certain. It was not much, but it was something. Amadi thanked Mama Ngozi and continued his investigation. Over the next several days, he spoke to others who had known Chioma. Her old neighbor, who remembered her as quiet and responsible. The woman who sold vegetables in the market, who said Chioma always paid her debts promptly. The teacher at the community school, who had encouraged Chioma to pursue nursing. No one had anything bad to say about her character, except for the one thing everyone believed she had done. Each night, Amadi returned to the graveyard. Each night, Chioma's spirit appeared, growing stronger as if his belief in her innocence gave her power. I spoke to Mama Ngozi, Amadi told her. She saw someone leaving the church late the night before the theft. Someone who moved like a man. There were 3 deacons who had keys to the church, Chioma said. Deacon Okofor, Deacon Is, and Deacon Nwosu. They were the only other people besides Reverend Okoro and myself who could enter freely. Are they still at the church? I do not know. I can only see what happens in the graveyard and sometimes glimpse the church. I cannot follow the living to their homes. Amadi made a decision. Tomorrow is Sunday. I will watch the church service carefully. I will look at the deacons and see if I can learn anything. Be careful, Chioma warned. If someone did this terrible thing and let me take the blame, they will not want their secret revealed. I am already invisible, Amadi said. No one pays attention to me. That might help. Sunday service was long and hot. Amadi sat in the back row with the other orphans, but his eyes were not on Reverend Okoro's sermon. He was watching the 3 deacons who sat in the front row. Deacon Okofor was very old now, bent with age, his hands shaking when he held the hymnal. Amadi doubted he could have stolen anything 7 years ago, he had been old even then. Deacon Is was a prosperous-looking man with a round belly and expensive shoes. He owned a shop in the market and always contributed generously to church collections. He seemed too wealthy to need stolen money. Deacon Nwosu was different. He sat rigidly in his seat, his face stern, his hands clasped tightly together. He was younger than the other 2 deacons, perhaps in his mid-40s. His clothes were neat but not expensive. His shoes were polished but worn. During the collection, Amadi watched carefully. Deacon Nwosu's hands trembled slightly as he helped count the money. Or was Amadi imagining it? After the service, Amadi lingered in the church while the other boys ran outside to play. He pretended to arrange the hymnals, but he was really listening to the deacon's talk. The roof still needs repair, Deacon Okofor wheezed. We should have fixed it years ago. We would have, if the money had not been stolen, Deacon Nwosu said sharply. That theft set us back years. God rest her soul, Deacon Is said. But what a waste. Such a young woman, to throw her life away for money. She destroyed the church's trust, Deacon Nwosu said. His voice was bitter, almost angry. People stopped giving as generously after that. They feared their contributions would be stolen too. We recovered, brother, Deacon Okofor said gently. God provides. Not enough, Deacon Nwosu muttered. Amadi fired this away. Why was Deacon Nwosu still so angry after 7 years? That evening, Amadi asked around about Deacon Nwosu. He learned that the man had lost his job at the bank 5 years ago. He learned that Nwosu's wife had left him, taking their children. He learned that Nwosu now lived alone in a small room behind the market, working odd jobs to survive. A man who had fallen on hard times. A man who might have been desperate 7 years ago. But this was not proof. Amadi needed more. I think it was Deacon Nwosu, he told Chioma that night. But I cannot prove it. Then we must make him reveal himself, Chioma said. Guilt is a heavy burden. It grows heavier with time. 7 years of carrying that secret, he must be suffering. What can I do? You can speak to him. Tell him that the truth is known. Tell him that Chioma's spirit cannot rest. Tell him that God sees what was hidden. He will think I am crazy. Perhaps. But guilt makes people vulnerable. Plant the seed of fear, and it will grow. Amodi found Deacon Mosu 3 days later, sitting alone on a bench outside the church, staring at nothing. The afternoon sun cast long shadows, and the church compound was quiet. Amodi's heart pounded as he approached. He was just a boy. What if Nwosu became angry? What if he hurt him? But Chioma's face came to his mind, her sad eyes, her unfulfilled dreams, her dying with shame she did not deserve, and Amodi found courage. Deacon Nwosu, he said quietly. The man looked up, startled. What do you want, boy? I want to talk to you about Chioma. Nwosu's face went pale. What? Chioma. The woman who was accused of stealing from the church 7 years ago. That matter is closed. She is dead. Why are you bringing up the past? Because she was innocent, Amodi said, his voice steady despite his fear. And the real thief never confessed. You are just a child. You know nothing about it. I know that an innocent woman died in disgrace. I know that someone let her take the blame for what they did. I know that God sees everything, even things hidden in darkness. Nwosu stood up abruptly. This is nonsense. Go away. Chioma's spirit cannot rest, Amodi continued, the words coming faster now. She calls out at night. She asks for justice. She asks for truth. You are speaking madness. But Nwosu's voice shook. The guilt is eating you, is it not? Amodi asked. 7 years of carrying this secret. 7 years of knowing an innocent woman died because of what you did. 7 years of living with your conscience. I did nothing. Nwosu shouted, but his face was ashen, his hands trembling. Then why are you so afraid? Amodi asked. An innocent man would not fear the truth. Nwosu grabbed Amodi's shoulder, his grip painful. Who told you these lies? Who sent you? Chioma sent me, Amodi said. She speaks to me in the graveyard. She showed me where she is buried, in the corner where they put the disgraced dead. She told me how she died with shame that was not hers. She told me she cannot rest until the truth is known. Something broke in Nwosu's face. His grip loosened. He staggered back, his breath coming in gasps. She cannot. She is dead. The dead do not speak. They speak to those who will listen, Amodi said. And I listen. Nwosu sank back onto the bench, his head in his hands. For a long moment, he said nothing. When he finally spoke, his voice was broken. I did not mean for her to die. I only wanted the money. I had debts, terrible debts. I was going to lose everything. My family was suffering. I thought I could take it and replace it later. I thought no one would know. Amodi felt a surge of triumph, but it was tempered by sadness. This was not a villain in a story. This was a broken man who had made a terrible choice. But they found out the money was missing, Amodi prompted. Yes. Too soon. I panicked. When they asked who could have taken it, I suggested it might have been Chioma. She was young, poor, desperate to go to school. It made sense. And once I suggested it, everyone else believed it too. It was so easy. Too easy. And you let her be blamed. I told myself it was her word against mine. That she could not prove her innocence. That eventually it would blow over. Nwosu's voice cracked. I did not know she would die. When I heard she had died in disgrace, calling out her innocence, I wanted to confess. But by then, it was too late. How could I admit what I had done? I would lose everything. So you lost your soul instead, Amodi said quietly. Nwosu looked up at him with hollow eyes. Yes. I lost my soul. My wife left me because she could not bear living with a man who had become so bitter and angry. My children do not speak to me. I lost my job because guilt made me careless. I have nothing now. Nothing but the memory of what I did. You need to confess, Amodi said. Publicly. In the church. You need to tell everyone that Chioma was innocent. They will hate me. They already hate who you have become. At least if you confess, you will be free of the lie. I cannot. Chioma cannot rest until you do, Amodi said. And you cannot rest either. You will carry this burden until you die, and then perhaps beyond death, your spirit will be as restless as hers. Nwosu wept then, his shoulders shaking, years of suppressed guilt pouring out. I am so sorry, he sobbed. I am so sorry, Chioma. I am so sorry. It took 3 more days for Nwosu to find the courage to confess. Amodi visited him each day, gently encouraging him, reminding him that truth was the only path to freedom. On the following Sunday, Nwosu stood before the church congregation during the service. His face was haggard, his hands shaking, but his voice was clear. I need to confess something, he began. The church fell silent. Reverend Okoro looked confused. The congregation waited. 7 years ago, money was stolen from the church collection box. A woman named Chioma was accused of the theft. She died in disgrace, protesting her innocence until the end. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Amodi sat in the back, his heart pounding. Chioma was innocent, Nwosu continued, his voice breaking. I know this because I was the one who stole the money. The church erupted. Voices rose in shock, anger, disbelief. Reverend Okoro stood frozen. The other deacons stared in horror. Nwosu raised his hand for silence. Gradually, the noise subsided. I was in debt. I was desperate. I took the money intending to replace it, but I was discovered too quickly. When the church leaders asked who might have taken it, I suggested Chioma. I let an innocent woman take the blame for my sin. He paused, tears streaming down his face. Chioma died believing no one would ever know the truth. She died with shame that belonged to me. I have carried this guilt for 7 years, and it has destroyed my life. But my destroyed life is nothing compared to the innocent life I destroyed. I confess before God and before this church that I am a thief and a coward. I ask for God's forgiveness, though I do not deserve it. And I ask that Chioma's name be cleared, that her memory be restored, that her mother be told her daughter was innocent. The church was completely silent now. Then, from the back, an old woman stood up, leaning heavily on a cane. Amodi recognized her from his investigations, Chioma's mother. My daughter told the truth, the old woman said, her voice trembling with emotion. For 7 years, I have known she told the truth. But no one would believe me. No one would believe her. She looked at Nwosu. I do not forgive you. Not yet. Perhaps not ever. But I thank you for finally speaking the truth. Reverend Okoro found his voice. This is unprecedented. Deacon Nwosu, you will face consequences for this confession, both from the church and possibly from the law. I know, Nwosu said. I accept whatever comes. I only ask that you restore Chioma's name. Put a proper marker on her grave. Tell the community she was innocent. Let her rest in peace. Amodi slipped out of the church while the congregation erupted in debate. He ran to the graveyard, to the forgotten corner where Chioma's grave lay. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and gold. As Amodi approached the grave, he saw Chioma's spirit waiting there, clearer and stronger than she had ever been. You heard? Amodi asked. I heard, Chioma said, and her face shone with relief and joy. You did it, Amodi. You gave me back my name. Will you rest now? Soon. First, I want to thank you. You are a special child, Amodi. You could hear me because you know what it is to be unseen and unheard. You helped me because you understand what it means to be dismissed and disbelieved. You were willing to be my voice when no one else would listen. I am just an orphan, Amodi said. Just a boy. You are more than that. You are a bridge between worlds. You are someone who listens when others are deaf. You are someone who sees what others miss. Never forget that, Amodi. Never believe you are less than you are. Chioma's form began to glow with golden light. My mother will have peace now. My name will be restored. I can finally rest. She smiled at him, and it was a smile of complete peace. Thank you, lonely boy. You were not too small to change the world. You were exactly the right size. The light grew brighter, and Chioma's spirit rose upward, dissolving into the golden sunset like smoke into wind. Amadi watched until the last shimmer of her presence faded. Then he sat by her grave and cried, not tears of sadness, but of release. He had done something important. He had mattered. He had been seen. The church held a special service of remembrance for Chioma. Her grave was moved to a place of honor in the cemetery, and a beautiful stone marker was placed there, reading, Chioma Okonkwo 1992 to 2018, she was innocent. She is remembered. Chioma's mother attended, supported by members of the community who had known her daughter. Reverend Okoro led prayers asking forgiveness for the church's failure to seek truth before judgment. The congregation sang hymns of redemption and grace. Deacon Musu was arrested, tried, and sentenced to community service. He worked every day in the graveyard, tending the graves, pulling weeds, planting flowers. He tended Chioma's grave with particular care, speaking to her quietly as he walked, asking for forgiveness he might never receive. Amadi watched all of this with quiet satisfaction. But the real change was in himself. The other boys no longer said he talked to himself. They said he was the boy who spoke truth to power, who fought for justice, who listened when no one else would. They looked at him with respect now, and sometimes they asked him questions about things that troubled them. Mama Ngozi gave him free akara every morning. For the boy who remembers, she said. The teacher at the community school noticed him and offered him extra lessons. You have a good mind and a good heart, she told him. That is a rare combination. And on quiet nights, when the moon hung low and the world was peaceful, Amadi would walk to the graveyard, not to hear voices anymore, but to sit by Chioma's grave and tell her about his day. I am not so lonely now, he told her. You helped me see that being different is not the same as being less. You helped me understand that even small people can do important things. Thank you, Chioma. Thank you for choosing me. The grave offered no answer, but Amadi did not need one. He knew Chioma was at rest now, free from the chains of injustice that had bound her spirit to the earth. And he knew that somewhere between the world of the living and the world of the dead, in that space where truth and justice meet, Chioma was smiling. In memory of all those who died with accusations they did not deserve, and for all the lonely children who become bridges between worlds, may they be seen, may they be heard, and may their courage never be forgotten. What's your take on this story? Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more.